actually produces the hydrogen on demand. It's never stored, it's never transported, it's never under pressure. So it's a lot safer than a typical hydrogen vehicle or system because you don't have to transport it to the site. It's made only when the engine is using it, and it's used right away.
Hi, everyone. Today I'm here with Tom Ross, the founder of HYGN Energy. They have an amazing technology that dramatically reduces the emissions from diesel engines. This could be a fantastic thing for the mining industry. I hope you enjoy this episode. Remind me about the first time we met. I was working at the Automotive Center of Excellence at Ontario Tech University, and we ran into each other. Remind me about that.
Yeah, so you were at UOIT, and I was a student there at UOIT also. I was taking energy systems engineering back then, but I was also helping bring the product to market. And we met there. We were looking at doing some testing with UOIT, and we were also doing testing abroad in China at the time too. And we were working with the product mostly in the transport trucking industry. And we brought the product. We had some great traction in Canada, and we were really pushing fuel savings. It really was a different market back then. They really weren't tracking emissions the way that they are now. And we were pushing it as a fuel savings device. And we were seeing some good traction in China, so the team took it forward there. And after that, I actually ended up going forward with the federal government here, administering grants and loans. And a little while later, we were actually approached just recently, again, by someone at the city of Kawartha Lakes with their issues. So we were approached by someone there who's been in basically full-day meetings about how to convert snowplows into electric vehicles. And he had this issue where they were going, what do we do? Do we tow a battery behind the snowplow? How do we charge 70 electric snowplows? We can't. We're in a rural city. So we said, listen, we've got a product. We don't know how it'll work with these new engines. We were using it for fuel savings in the past, but we know that it's great for emission reduction. So let's reapproach it now with you guys and see if we can help you out.
So remind me, tell us what this thing does.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a hydrogen hybrid kit for engines. So we bolt it on in about 2 hours on virtually any gas or diesel engine. And what it does is it delivers a small amount of hydrogen in with the engine's air intake. So the engine keeps burning gas or diesel, but it burns less of it. It now burns it more efficiently, and you get more energy out of the gas or diesel. So by burning more of the fuel more completely, you get less emissions out the tailpipe, less unburned fuel, and you get more range out of the fuel. You get more energy out of it.
And there's something about hydrogen that it burns quickly, that it encourages either the diesel or the gasoline to have better combustion somehow?
Absolutely. So if you think about regular combustion of a diesel engine, you typically only get the outer layer of the diesel fuel droplet that's actually burning at top dead center. And then you get a flame front that follows it down in the cylinder. And that actually burns oil on the walls and everything. So what hydrogen does is just a very small amount of it, under 1% of the air going into the engine is now hydrogen. And it just burns so fast that what you get is you get complete combustion of that fuel droplet all the way through at top dead center. So you don't have the flame front following the piston down. You don't burn the oil on the engine walls. You actually get what you're supposed to get out of the engine. And by doing that, you actually burn more of the fuel more completely. So less unburned fuel out of the tailpipe as particulates and more range out of the fuel.
So just for people who, when they hear hydrogen in vehicles, they think of the hydrogen fuel cell. So just tell us quickly the main differences between the two. And I think this is way more interesting to mining companies because we aren't dragging around pressurized hydrogen. But just
Absolutely.
Remind us of the difference between the two.
Yeah, definitely. And our team has a lot of history with this. So we have a lot of history with this product, but also someone on my team, John Fiorini, was actually awarded fuel cell patents for Ballard during their big project. So we have a great understanding of how fuel cells work and their ups and downs, especially with the transportation industry. Really, the fuel supply is the biggest issue right now. But the biggest difference ultimately between us and them is we're trying to keep these existing engines on the road longer and keep them working just more efficiently, burning more of the fuel that they're using, getting more energy out of it, less emissions out the tailpipe, but keep using them. And they're not converting to full hydrogen engines. They're actually converting to hydrogen hybrids. So they keep burning that gas or diesel, just less of it. And what the biggest difference is that supply chain issue. We strap this box onto the engine, And essentially, it can go anywhere on any vehicle as long as you can access the water tank. It's got a water tank on it, and it'll last 2 weeks with the water that's in the system. And as long as you top that up, it actually produces the hydrogen on demand. It's never stored, it's never transported, it's never under pressure. So it's a lot safer than a typical hydrogen vehicle or system because you don't have to transport it to the site. It's made only when the engine is using it, and it's used right away.
I had heard that a couple of mining companies I spoke to about it, they told me they rejected hydrogen fuel almost immediately because they couldn't envision a way of getting the hydrogen to the remote mine sites. Does that make sense to you?
That makes absolute sense. And it's exactly why we have an opportunity with our solution now, because you don't have to transport it to those remote mine sites. You can just put on our electrolyzer, and it's designed to be simple and reliable. So in the past, this thing had gone to the ice highway at -40 Celsius. It was in the deserts in Texas and +70 Celsius. And it was on the back of logging trucks, and it would just go and it would come back. They just have to add water. So it was really built to be rugged and really withstand the underground or above ground mining environments too.
Tell me about more about the trial with the city of, or the town of Kawartha Lakes.
Absolutely. So the city, they approached us with their issue with their snowplows. They really wanted to find some way to lower the emissions, but they just couldn't convert them to electric. They didn't have the option. And even if they could buy 70 electric snowplows, they had no way to charge them. So we came in and we said, hey, you've got brand new vehicles. We don't know that our system will work with the brand new 2023 engines, but let's give it a shot. Let's put a couple on some snowplows, buses, and pickup trucks and try it out. And they said, yeah, for sure, let's try it. That sounds like a great solution. So we did. And they went out and they got third-party vendors for emissions testing, and they used GPS telematics for fuel savings. And the city went and collected the data on 3 snowplows, a city bus, and 2 city pickup trucks. And basically what they saw was an average of 75% reduction in particulate matter, the tailpipe smoke, as well as around 10% in fuel savings for those vehicles.
That's kind of an amazing result. Were they shocked by that?
They were really shocked. And they actually just said, well, this is amazing. This is exactly what we wanted to see with the emissions. And we're looking at a further project with them. But there was more that we learned too. So the federal government, through the IRAP program, helped us do more testing up at NORCAT at an active mine there. And we were able to do more in-depth testing over a period of a few days. And what we learned was that our system can actually make an even bigger impact at by delivering different amounts of hydrogen at different RPMs and different things we can do. So we actually have a big follow-up project we're hoping to do with the city of Kawartha Lakes to even show even greater results than we already have from there.
Like, that's pretty bold of someone working for a municipality to do something like this. What do you think it was about that individual that prompted him to do this? It seems kind of risky, untested. Do those kind of visionaries exist in municipalities?
It's tough. I'm not going to lie. Not just municipalities. In Canada, finding first adapters is really tough. But there are people out there. You just have to keep kicking down the doors. And really, his biggest issue was he was so frustrated that he was in full day meetings about how to lower emissions for a snowplow, and he didn't have a solution. So it was really just this big drive to lower emissions and the frustration out of being in these meetings with no results or action items. And they're saying, what do we do? Do you want us to literally put a 12-volt battery in the passenger seat and strap that in and say it's a hybrid?
So how does the size of an engine on a municipal bus or a snowplow compare to the engines we might find in mines?
Yeah, that's a great point. So we designed our engine kit to be engine agnostic. Basically, any 6 to 12 liter engine that's gas or diesel, that's what this kit is designed for. And then in mining, often you'll find much larger engines than that. So as you go up, you just add more of the kits. It's modular per roughly 12 liters of engine. But that's part of also what we are doing in the pilot is, and what we're working on with OEMs, integrating into the engines and making more of an impact. We can actually do baseline testing on equipment, engines, power generators, pumps, underground or above ground vehicles. And by doing more further emissions testing, we can optimize the integration of our kit with those engines and actually make even bigger impacts. And that's really what we want to do in a pilot, is help accelerate the development of the second generation of our product so that it's really perfect for the commercial mining environment.
So I think when the members of Rethink Mining listen to this podcast, some of them will be thinking to themselves, I'd like to try this out, or I'd like to participate in a consortium project with some of the other members. What do you think the ideal project looks like for you with miners? And what would you hope to accomplish in the first project with our members?
Great question. So I would really like to approach a mine from a really like a more holistic approach. So we would look at them and we would see what types of diesel and gas engines are across the mine. So we'd look at underground vehicles, above ground vehicles, even the trucks transporting transporting things in and out of the mine. We would look at stationary power generators and diesel powered pumps. And we would take a baseline on both the emissions and the fuel economy on these items. And then we would go across the mine and we would convert them into hydrogen hybrids. It would take under 2 hours per engine to convert it into a hydrogen hybrid. And then we would allow it to continue running to collect that fuel economy data as we go along and also do the follow-up emissions testing. And so then we would have a before and after, a really, really good picture of before and after hydrogen installation, and we could see the impact on those vehicles. And we could even do further emissions testing and further integrate the system with the engines and make a kit that would really, a specialized kit that would integrate with those specific mining vehicles so that it's ready to go. It could be shipped anywhere and installed by the mechanics on site themselves.
Now, what about engine life? A lot of people are going to be really worried about that. The way I see your technology contributing to mining is this. Mining companies, a lot of them will have a goal to transition entirely to an electric mine and get rid of diesel engines entirely. But of course, that's impossible because they have such an inventory of machines and it's just too expensive to convert them all at once. So they're going to do it gradually. I see this as kind of an interim measure.
Yeah.
Let's convert vehicles as we're able to electric. But in the meantime, let's take all the other ones and put on this technology, which seems like it's rather inexpensive, seems to make a really significant impact on pollution, seems to make an impact on fuel economy. It seems like the perfect transition while we're trying to get entirely to electric. But my worry would be this. What about engine life? Like maybe I can put it on a 35-year-old loader and if the engine dies in 2 years, fine. But if I'm putting it on newer machines, I'm really worried about that. So what's the story around engine life?
That's a good question too. And I think there's two parts to the answer. One is the engine actually will end up running cleaner. And so in Europe, before they do emissions testing, there are places they actually run hydrogen through engines to clean them out. So hydrogen actually, not only is it really fast burning, so you can get that top dead center combustion, you can get more energy out of your gas and diesel, but it also has an affinity for carbon. So before you even get a lot of those benefits from the hydrogen, it's actually going to grab onto those carbon deposits and pull them out of the engine. So you're actually going to clean up your engine by using hydrogen. It will actually be running cleaner, running smoother. It will last longer because of that. And you won't have that flame front following the piston down in the cylinder. So you won't burn up burn up the oil on the cylinder walls, and your oil will be cleaner. It will last longer as well. So ultimately, by using hydrogen, you'll actually get a longer lasting engine life. So you can keep those existing engines on the road longer before having to convert them.
So if we were doing a project together and trying it out in a mine, what would be the way that we would monitor and measure the effect on engine life?
I think one way is obviously the tailpipe emissions will tell you if the engine is running cleaner.
Couldn't there be issues with wear, though? Engine wear somehow?
Yeah, I think that one really good way to actually show this testing would be through oil sampling. So you can do oil sampling, have a historic oil sampling of your equipment, and then do an oil change, install the hydrogen, and then continue to do oil sampling. And because the engine is running cleaner, the oil will be cleaner when you sample it. You'll actually see that. and you'll be able to prove that your oil life will be longer.
So now you've been working on this for a while, I guess, a few years. And prior to that, the other fellows working with you in the company have been working on it a really long time. Like, it's been known for a long time that hydrogen has this kind of effect in engines. Why has this not been widely embraced by the automotive industry if it's so well known? Why haven't we seen it everywhere?
That's a good point. And I think it was really the drive for the product in the past was really purely fuel savings based. It really wasn't an emissions product. And when my father first patented a small scale electrolyzer to start doing this, they literally were not tracking carbon emissions. It wasn't even regulated at all. So it's slowly become over time more and more heavily regulated to the point we are now where people have zero emission mandates. And like you said, they might not be able to reach that right away. And there might be specialized heavy vehicles that just will never be electrolyzed. They might be super expensive as well. So those are the ones that really we can make a big impact on right now as well.
So what was it exactly that rejuvenated your interest in this and got you working on it again?
The big drive was the emissions. So we didn't even bring it back talking about fuel savings at all. We were purely talking about it from an emissions perspective, how to lower the emissions of those snowplows. And then we got into the mining industry with NORCAT and IRAP doing that testing, and we showed up to 30% reduction in CO and up to 15% reduction in NO2 on that preliminary testing on that underground vehicle. And we found, okay, there's another definite industry here that needs us. And right when we were doing that testing was right when the industry also heard that the mining industry is now being regulated for particulate matter underground. And particulate matter essentially is unburned fuel going out your tailpipe. So that's where we make our biggest impact. That's why the city of Kawartha Lake saw 75% reduction, and NORCAT only saw 30% because Kawartha Lakes was measuring tailpipe smoke. And that is where we actually make a big reduction. You're actually getting your energy out of that fuel. It's not going out the tailpipe as unburned emissions.
So when you were at the NORCAT conference where we met again for the second time in so many years, what sort of reaction did you get from people who worked in mining to the idea? Were they skeptical? Did they dismiss you, or did they love it?
Yeah, it was a really mixed reception, and I think it was a good reception, though. It was definitely met with some skepticism, but with cautious skepticism, but people are interested in it for sure. So we did the testing with NORCAT in March, and they essentially said, hey, what you guys are doing is really cool. We think there's a couple mines that have ventilation issues or just might want to lower their emissions, and you should start telling people about it. We said, yeah, that's a good idea. So he said, come to have an exhibit at Mining Transformed, and that was really our first shot at telling people what we were doing. And we got some good reception from the mining industry. There's a few people we're looking at doing some pilots with their mines, and also some OEMs that we're talking about doing testing to actually start integrating with the OEMs into the engines and really making that really integrating well so that we can make an even bigger impact, remove the customer interaction so that it can actually fill itself, and working with OEMs to license various products to them as well.
And now I guess these electrolyzer, is that what you call it?
Yep, an electrolyzer.
It consumes distilled water?
That's right.
Has there been any issues with supply of that?
Yeah, so I guess that's definitely the concern. So first they say, well, it's a hydrogen kit. Where do you get your hydrogen? We say, don't worry, it's just distilled water. And they say, well, we're at a remote mine. Where are we going to get distilled water? And it's actually a lot easier for us. We can actually install on site a distiller, and we can even use recycled mine water and recycle that into distilled water for the unit. It uses a very small amount of water. So it's not that we're replacing the fuel with hydrogen. We're just getting more energy out of the gas or diesel. So we don't have to put a lot of hydrogen in. And it actually only uses about a coffee cup worth of water in a roughly 12-hour shift.
So how much fuel would be used in that 12-hour shift? Like, I'm trying to think of the proportion of water to...
You're talking about under 1% of the air going in with the engine is now hydrogen. So it's a very fractional amount of hydrogen in comparison.
And did anyone express any safety concerns at all about it in, say, underground applications?
Definitely. So there are safety concerns with hydrogen specifically also in underground applications. And one thing that's really unique about what we're doing is we don't store hydrogen. It's never sitting there in a tank. It's never pressurized. It's used right away. So we split that water into hydrogen and oxygen, and the engine burns it up right away. If any of it gets out, it vents to atmosphere right away. It is a really unique thing about our electrolyzer is that it's actually a low pressure, low temperature electrolyzer that doesn't have a membrane or rare earth or toxic materials. So having no membrane means we don't have that issue with for fire or explosion that many electrolyzers do have. And it's essentially virtually recyclable at the end of the day.
Are there any other objections you've heard from the mining industry that, we need to talk about? Things that people are frequently worried about?
I think the frequent worry is just that they say, hey, we want to see a large-scale pilot and we want to see this work in action in the field on more vehicles. They say that what we've done is very interesting and they really like it, and they like that we did it third-party validation with both the city and NORCAT. But they essentially say that, hey, we've got bigger vehicles, we've got power generators, we've got pumps. Let's see it work on all of these things across the board and at a larger scale.
So our goal here at the ReThink Mining podcast is to do exactly that. We're trying to bring technologies like yours to the mining companies so we can find the few individuals, the visionaries, the early adopters who are willing to give it a whirl, just like the guy did at the city of Kawartha Lakes. So I'm hoping that we're able to do that for you with this podcast and find someone who will undertake a project with you or a consortium that comes together. And I think what it could do for a company like yours, or this is my dream, that by bringing a number of mining companies together at the same time to look at it, pay attention, and determine all at the same time, is this legit? Is this going to make a difference? I think it could just accelerate your company so quickly. And I think it could save you years.
Oh, yeah.
So along with accelerating you and getting you to move faster and get products that are perfectly suited to mining, I think this is the ideal role for us, and that's what we're trying to do. The other thing that I'm hoping that ReThink Mining does is that we become a kind of a substitution for angel investors and for venture capital, because we have the customers who are most suited to the technology, we have their attention, and we have them contributing financially. Do you see it as a substitution for those kind of investors as well? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a huge catalyst that could, essentially you could skip the investment stage, but not only that, you're exposed to all of these investors through this process. Canada has a really big issue that, honestly, it's the same issue that my company has. We are great at technology. We're great at developing technology and doing what we do, but we're not great at telling anyone what we do. And that's what NORCAT told us too, was that you really need to get out there and tell people what you're doing if you want to get this product into the market and really commercialize it. So I think that this is really the catalyst that we need to be able to bring this innovative technology to the market and show people that there are other solutions that are available now.
Good. I hope we can help you. When you think about, like if I think of municipal buses and plows, I think that's a pretty huge market. I think about mining, that's an enormous market. What do you think is the number one application of your technology?
So I think that we've learned a lot over the process, and we thought municipalities were the golden goose for us. We thought they'd be great, and we definitely still think that they're a great market for us, but they are a slower moving market. So they're not the private industry. They're not going to jump on it with huge fleets. They all have smaller fleets of vehicles, but they all talk to each other, and it's really going to move fast when it does start moving. And we see them as a great partner to collect that third-party validation that we desperately needed at the start. So I thought that the municipalities were a great start for us, and they've been a great kickoff. But the mining industry, being a private industry that's being regulated for emissions, really hard regulations for emissions are happening right now. It seems like it's the perfect target for us, and it could just be fantastic. Now, my real sweet spot is for the power generators, those stationary power generators. And a lot of these remote mines depend on stationary diesel power generators for a lot of things. Even running pumps are a very similar situation. But I think this product really has a great opportunity to make an even bigger the biggest fuel savings and emission reduction on those stationary power generators, and do that at a very large scale.
I was stunned when I found out the cost of electricity that is generated by diesel generators. It was shocking. I mean, I guess the cost of getting the diesel to those remote sites. So in that case, you can get those dramatic reductions in emissions, but I think the fuel savings also could be a pretty large impact. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. I mean, in a lot of these cases, they're driving or even flying diesel fuel out to these super remote locations. So when you say, oh, it's really tough filling up at the pump, those guys are feeling it a lot more. So yeah, when we can hit bigger numbers like 30% fuel savings for a stationary power generator that's up in remote northern Canada, that can make a huge, huge impact on the range of that fuel and the bottom line for that operation for sure.
So when people have a goal of reducing emissions, this can make a really big impact, and probably something that they could take through their organization and get approvals on. If you were to look at the financial payback for getting the reduction in emissions, is there a case that there's a financial payback through this somehow?
There is definitely an ROI as well through the fuel savings. You'll definitely see fuel savings and a repayment for the product that way. Another big thing in the mining industry is the depreciation of some of these vehicles that they're trying to prematurely recycle or get rid of before end of life. I mean, if you can put a $10,000 or $20,000 hydrogen kit on a large specialized vehicle and get the rest of your $200,000 depreciation out of it, that can be a big factor as well for the bottom line for these guys.
What else do you think people need to know about this technology?
It works with virtually any gas or diesel engine, but really it's a great fleet product. We're trying to convert larger fleets of vehicles that we can make a big impact on at a larger scale right away. We've been working on a larger scale electrolyzer as well. So another project where we take grid power at night, store it in the form of hydrogen, and then make electricity during the day. That's another application that we're working on. Yeah.
Is that something that mining companies would be interested in down the road?
I think down the road, it definitely is something that they could be interested in, where they could look at something like a 3 megawatt hour hydrogen battery. So you would be able to store 3 megawatts of power and produce half a megawatt of power. And so that's to help offset the peak power demands of those mines and those operations. Yeah.
So it's great to see you again after all these years. It's the first time I've done a podcast for ReThink Mining.
Oh, great.
And it's been a lot of fun. I hope that some of our members undertake a project with you, and that we'll be able to come back, get together again a year from now, and talk about the fabulous progress your company's been making.
Yeah, thank you so much for the support. And yeah, we're really excited. I think that this type of project is really the catalyst that could take our company to the next level and get our product commercialized. So yeah, thank you so much. It's great to see you again after all these years too, and looking forward to meeting up again in the future.
Thank you.